Hi. So I'm going to be talking about the treatment of other mental illness, so in different parts of society. My name's Armida. So what is mental illness? That's what I'm going to start with. Mental illness starts within whether it's like the environment someone's in, an event that has occurred in someone's life, or even someone's self-esteem. So different types of mental illnesses could be depression, anxiety, post-traumatic anxiety, um, like bulimia as well. So it just involves all of that kind of stuff. And then there are three types of mental illnesses. So they're psychotic, so the ones that are like the crazies and stuff. The mood illnesses and anxiety illnesses. So in the past, mental illness has been stigmatized for a long time. In like the medical field, they've been stigmatized. Like back then, they weren't given the proper medication that they have to be given. So they were just given to them just so they could feel better. Actually, they made them feel numbed. So in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, it's about a book. It's a book about the psychotic hospital. So they label the patients. One of them is the acutes, and the other ones are the chronics. So the acutes are the ones that they are said to be cured. So to like the doctors and the nurses, they are very well to get cured, not like too much into their like mental illnesses to them. And then the chronics are the ones that to them they can't get cured. So it could be like anything like something that they would have seen back then that they couldn't cure. So in 1962, like the medical medication that they would give their patients were they would give them a lot of pills. So the main character in the novel, the nurses would just pass by and like make them swallow the pills. They didn't allow them to decide if they wanted to or not. They would even like sit them down and electrify them just so they could feel numb, like I said. And then there's this part in the book where they put him in this isolation room, and there were like the other patients were like basically making fun of him that he wasn't able to eat. So they would sit in front of his where the room he was in and just eat in front of him, and then he just explained how like he felt that he wasn't treated the way he needed to. And then the whole why Ken Kesey wrote this book is that he actually worked at a hospital, like the psychotic hospital, at a psychotic hospital in Oregon. So he just wrote about his experience there. So it shows how credible he is, and they also like mistreated them. Like they would hit them with like the brooms and stuff. So it was just how like you see the treatment of otherness in the medical field back then, just due to the fact like they would make them feel numb just so when their family would come over and see them, they would think that they're okay when they really weren't. They were just. So throughout time, the medication changed. They had to be prescribed the certain pill that they had to get. They couldn't just be given anything. And they would prescribe the pills, anything that they would give them. They had to come back in like a month to see if the pill was working or not.
It's 8:30.
Unlike in the other, back then, they just gave them pills without knowing the side effects that the patients had to it. Also, back then, you could just put someone in a psychotic hospital. Talking to my mentor, she told me that since she's a private psychiatrist, she told me that now you could put them in a 72-hour hospital. So they only stay there for 72 hours. After 72 hours are done, they get the right to get a court hearing. So then the court decides whether or not the person is in danger of hurting themselves or others. So that's like if they aren't feeding themselves, their house is very dirty and they can't sustain themselves by themselves. That's when they push into like the effect of them staying at a hospital longer. She also told me about a story about this woman that she visited. She said that the women would say she was fine, but when she went over to visit her to like talk to her, she said that the food was like just there in the sink and there's a lot of cockroaches. So that's when she realized she had to like push and like make her go to like a 72 hours and then decide for the court hearing, because back then you could just put anyone. And she said due to the fact that you can't hold someone where they don't want to be, they have the right for a court hearing. So yeah. So it just adds on to my mentor's, not her story, but her father's story. she told me about that when he was a little kid, these boys like beat him up because he was very like smart and very different from them. So they were jealous of him, and they beat him up, and so then he grew post traumatic anxiety. That's when you're anxious and like scared for like a period of time. So it's just she told me that he would wake up screaming, and then he wasn't able to speak for a really long time. So and then that was like in 1960s, 50s, something like that. And she said that back then they didn't even have the correct medication, so they would just give him anything, and that led into Alzheimer's for him. So now he's dealing with Alzheimer's. It's just like it shows like how the treatment of otherness back then really affected people because they weren't given the proper stuff they needed. And so this brings me back to Ordinary People by Judith Guest. This is where the whole family, like the other side of the society, how family even treated their kids as the other, just due to the fact that, because the boy, his brother passed away. He always felt like he was the fault that why his brother passed away. And so even his friends, when he went back to school, because he went to a hospital, he was there for a while. After he came out, he went back to school, and his friends would treat him differently just because they thought like, oh, he's very like sad and like he needs more like that attention, like for you to be nicer to him. And he always felt like that wasn't right for people to do. He wanted to feel like everyone else. He didn't want people to feel bad for him. And so it also like his mother treated him as the other, because his mother would just push him away, and like she never asked him like, oh, what was going on, it was mostly his dad. So you could just see how like so how this connects to like society. I would say labeling. We label a lot of people due to the fact that they are, the way they are dressed, or just like even the things they do to themselves and stuff. And that's how I connected it to Ordinary People, because in the book, his friends call him flaky just due to the fact that he's they feel like he's too, you could say like different like after he came out. And then also how even someone could label themselves that they're fine when we might not know the actual reason if they are or not. So it just adds on to like anyone could get a mental illness. You don't have to have gone through something, or I feel like that's something people don't understand, is that mental illness could grow in someone like the next day and stuff, and it's just something that we can't stop. And so how this connects to high school, the reason why I did mental illness in general as my senior thesis was because I feel like in high school we judge people based on how they look and what they are wearing. So I feel like we've all judged someone once in our life. Like we can't say we haven't. And I feel like that's something that should be stopped, because I feel like even if someone's wearing all black and like they look very different, doesn't mean that they might be depressed or something, because the person that's smiling could be the one going through the most. So that's why I would say. And then also it just connects to how like the different shootings that have been going on, how society even labels them. Like the UC Merced one, how they said that he was a loner. I feel like that's a very rude way for the media to portray people as when they're like mentally ill and have something going on in their life, instead of giving them that support. Right. And so I was speaking to my mentor and asked her what does she think we could do as like our society and like even in high school. And she came up with a really good idea that we should have like global education wise about mental illness. So explain more to like the youth and tell them that not only like if you have gone through like a parent passing away or something else doesn't mean you can't grow any type of mental illness. And she also said that we should be more nicer to people. Even if you don't talk to someone, you should still like congratulate them, be like, hey, you look nice today. You never know like what little word can make someone feel better. That's what she was telling me. And then I asked her what she would have done, because she told me about this patient that she interacted that passed away due to the fact that she said that his father was very wealthy. So he was an alcoholic, and then he kind of just like stopped for a while, but then his father wouldn't let him go see her. So the father ended up saying, no, he could go some other day. We're going to go on our yacht and something like that. And she was like, that she felt like that wasn't right for him to do. So then that ended up leading the guy to like committing suicide, because he felt like he needed to drink and stuff. So she says that due to that, we should also educate our parents and like the family, just so they can know that you don't need to be a certain way to like gain like your own mental illness. So yeah, that concludes our presentation and my citation.